back. It's a back pillow. It's a lumbar support.
There's always too many pillows. Happy Marriage Monday.
Happy Marriage Monday. It's a lumbar pillow.
Okay, I'm just going to put it right there.
There you go. How you guys doing?
We missed you.
Yes, we took a week off.
Yeah.
Didn't we, John?
We did. We
took a week off.
For good reason.
Very good reason.
Yeah, so we had a few people say, hey, what happened to Marriage Monday? We'd like to tell you about that.
It's a good story.
Yeah, it's a hard story. So it was a week ago, and Father's Day, epic day. Really, like one of the highest highs I've had. The Father's house regathered together.
It was packed.
Oh,
it was
my
so
goodness.
Fun.
Some friends of ours came.
Family
came. They all came over to our house afterwards. I was like on an adrenaline rush.
Yep.
We'd been building up to this moment for, a couple months now. Yeah, and so Cyndi made this amazing lunch, and then
it was amazing.
We decided to play Monopoly.
My favorite game, by the way.
Yes, she's
not because I win all the time, but just I love the game.
Well, that would play into it if you won all the time. Yeah.
But it's a fun game. It's strategy. We've raised our kids on playing the game.
Yeah,
so.
And in fact, we've often joked that before a couple gets married, they should actually play Monopoly.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with a lot of, actually, even though it's a game, real issues that come up in life around money.
Yeah, well, and strategy and
competitiveness.
Yeah, for those who are better at it and stuff. And it just teaches you a lot about each other. Yeah. And yourself, I think, too.
It does.
Yeah. We'll leave it there. But last week's game didn't go very well. There we were playing with our family, all of our family, and it kind of went a little bit south.
Yeah. So I started taking things personally and got a little too competitive. Her family's competitive too, but I just started taking it way too personally, and then I embarrassed her because of how upset I got with deals that she was making that she wasn't making with me, and so obviously she's in real estate for a reason because she knows what she's doing, and so I totally embarrassed her and ended up like basically ending the gathering right there because it just made it really awkward, and I felt extremely bad.
Yeah.
And so I apologized to the family and I apologized to her, but we kind of want to talk about how to fight your way back from a fight, because it's basically taken a whole week to get to a place where we actually felt like we were on the victory side of it, and we could share some of the things with you guys.
And the reality is we're all going to fight, or if you want to call it argue or disagree.
Discussions.
Heated discussions. It's always going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah.
Or you can avoid altogether and then just blow up in other areas, but it's all the same thing. We just call it different things. It's going to happen, but what do we do after? What do we do after the damage has been done? Which last week was a little too fresh, which is why we took a little break from Marriage Monday. Yeah,
because we don't ever want to get on here and pretend. This is only valuable if it's real, and we don't want you guys to think that we have no problems. So you guys are probably like, okay, so the next time they miss, we'll know they had a big fight.
Ooh, the next one's gonna be good.
You can just pray for us, and that's really the goal, though, is that this would be a two-way street.
Yeah.
That we could start this dialogue and be praying for you and your marriage, and so I, of course, owned it. It was very much my part in it, and I apologized. And she still needed time, and that's part of how we process. I was ready to deal with it
right then and there.
That moment.
And I'm like, I need time away to process because we process differently. I'm a slow processor. He's just like immediately can name every emotion and have them like alphabetical order. And I'm like, I don't know. So I needed some time, like kind of the whole rest of the day. We actually didn't really talk through it much until that night, a little bit that night, but kind of overall last week, we just kind of unpacked it and realized that there was more to discuss. And it was really good for us because we've seen a marriage counselor before. Well, a counselor before, actually, not necessarily for marriage stuff, but for other stuff, just life and things that come up, just to process through. And, both of us grew up not thinking counseling was bad, but it was like you only go to counseling if you're like really messed up. Like those people need counseling. But we've learned it's kind of like working out. It's almost like preventative medicine, where it's good to have someone to talk to you can trust that, bases their work off of the Word of God. And so we reached out to our counselor last week and said, hey, can we talk? And we found that was really helpful.
Yeah, and we call it fighting your way back from a fight, because it's not going to happen accidentally. It's only going to happen intentionally. You're not going to fall back into a place of unity. We really had to work hard at it.
Yeah.
And so it was counseling. It was me following her cues as for when she was ready to talk through stuff and pray through stuff. And then the counselor brought to attention, have you guys actually grieved everything that you've just left behind and before jumping into your new season? And that's of course the counselor was able to bring up the point that the Monopoly game was just what brought to the reality surface that we hadn't processed through everything that just ended. And he called it death. There was some deaths that happened in the last season. We're running forward into the life of this next season, but we hadn't taken time to grieve. And just like when you push a balloon down under the water, if you don't let it up, it's going to come up somewhere. And for me, my grief came up in our Monopoly game against the one that I love the most.
Yeah, well, and I realized too in talking, with all that's gone on with, COVID and stuff in our country, and even the racial tensions, it's not just us that have been through a transition. We've all been through transition,
Everybody.
No matter what. To some degree or another, we've really all been affected by what's gone on in our world in the last 6 months. So it's not just us that's in that process, but it's all of us. And so our counselor just challenged us to process grief, to process what's been lost, what's been left behind. Even if you're happy where you're at, that things that we've left behind, there's a kind of laying that down. And just kind of talk to us some ways to do that, to journal, to pray, to talk, but to allow some space to process what's been left behind.
And acknowledging the newness of the season is both exciting, but also has its challenges. As Cyndi and I were pastoring together in New Hope for years, we would go into the office together, we'd be problem solving together, so we didn't actually have to work that hard on staying on the same page.
Yeah.
We worked really well together.
Space all the time.
Yeah. And
now we're in separate spaces.
And and so we have to work extra hard to be interested in the other person's career and the successes. Of course, absolutely.
Always interested.
Yeah. And I and our counselor said, get your calendar out and start writing in the big rocks. And so we're starting July 2020, and we're writing in our big rocks not only for our date nights, but also for our Friday nights with our family, the different important things that we got to make sure that no matter how busy our schedule gets, that we are prioritizing this relationship. Even building in those times where we got used to walking every night. I don't know if you guys had this, but we would walk
walks
sometimes 2 nights. Our dog was the happiest with quarantine because she got walked every single night. But that was actually a regular thing for us to actually process through stuff. And we realized as soon as we got here, hit the ground running, unpacking, getting to know a new church, getting ready to reopen that church, starting a brand new career. That part that we thought, that's nice. That part that we kind of underestimated, we realized that's actually really extremely important.
Yeah. So we're trying to re-implement some important things, scheduling, calendaring things, even scheduling processing time, scheduling kid time and family time. And something we're even talking through with our own boys is in the process of change to make sure that we process grief, even if it doesn't feel like grief, because I don't necessarily feel like I carry grief, but it's there just in letting go of something that we've left behind. And I think we can all relate to that to one degree or another.
Yeah, it was really neat, a kind of a sweet gift from God. We actually ended up going back to visit her aunt on Lido Island, where we got married 23 years ago, and we just celebrated our anniversary 2 weeks ago. And so just getting to be back at that place again and being reminded of, how far we've come from those two people that were in love with each other but didn't really understand what that meant.
We had no idea.
And this is very much what love looks like. It's messy, it's hard, but it's worth it.
Always worth it.
So we want to encourage you, wherever it is that you're at. Maybe you've been dealing with stuff that's much older than just a couple weeks. Maybe you've been dealing with things that are a couple years or more, and we just want to remind you that God is bigger than that, and that we would love to agree with you in prayer than that. And no matter how far you feel away from the other person, you can fight your way back through the strength that God gives, and just these kind of simple strategies of finding some common ground together.
Yeah, just start somewhere. just start in one
That's
place.
good.
Make that decision, first of all, not to give up.
Yeah.
But that you're going to fight for it.
Yeah.
Not fight with it.
Yeah. not
fight for it.
Not fight each other, but fight for each other.
For
and your marriage is worth it.
Yeah, you're worth it.
Yes. So we love you guys. Thanks for your patience. We're doing this together. See you next week.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as I know, see you next week.
Yes.
We'll see how it goes.
See you next week.